This is not just a swamp. This is the Everglades, Florida's iconic river of grass, a wild sanctuary deeply woven into the fabric of American heritage. For centuries, this ancient wilderness has stood as a unique testament to evolution, serene and timeless. But beneath this tranquil facade, a silent and brutal war is unfolding. In the heart of this territory, Python Action Team leader Dr. James Vance stepped through the black mud to find something that would shock the scientific community. A massive 16-foot Burmese python lay dead along the canal, no bite marks, no signs of a struggle with an alligator. Over the past months, nearly 100 of these apex predators creatures, with absolutely no natural enemies here, have dropped dead without a scratch. "We were geared up for a relentless war against an invading army," Vance recalls, his voice heavy. "But seeing these giants collapse out of nowhere feels like a ghost is hunting them from the inside. What could possibly bring down the undisputed rulers of the marsh?" If you want to uncover the dark truth behind this invisible killer and follow the ultimate battle for America's wild heart, hit that subscribe button now. The answer isn't found in claws or fangs, but in a terrifying genetic secret. To fully understand how these apex predators came to completely dominate the Everglades, we have to look back at a groundbreaking discovery that fundamentally changed everything we thought we knew about this invasion. It was back in 2018 when USGS scientists uncovered a chilling truth during routine genetic testing. The massive snakes sliding through the Florida brush were no longer just purebred Burmese pythons. Instead, they had crossbred with their close relatives, the Indian pythons, creating a highly adaptable hybrid. Before you dive deeper into how this ecological nightmare unfolded, where are you watching this video from? Please tell us your country or city in the comments, and let's explore together. In the world of biology, this kind of genetic mixing sparks a powerful phenomenon known as hybrid vigor. By blending the DNA of two distinct species, nature inadvertently engineered a highly resilient super soldier. The Burmese python brought its massive, intimidating size and a natural preference for wet, marshy wetlands. But the Indian python contributed something far more dangerous: the ability to thrive on higher, much drier ground, and a significantly higher tolerance for colder temperatures. For decades, wildlife managers took comfort in the belief that the cold winters of the American Southeast would act as a natural barrier, keeping the python invasion securely locked within the tropical boundaries of southern Florida. This genetic breakthrough shattered that hope entirely. With this newly acquired genetic toolkit, the Everglades can no longer hold them back. These snakes now possess the biological keys to march further north into the heart of the American mainland, threatening ecosystems that were once thought to be completely safe. The devastating impact of this super python goes far beyond its impressive physical size or its expanding geographic range. If you walked through the core regions of the Everglades National Park today, you would immediately notice a haunting, heavy silence. The usual rustling in the bushes is gone. In just a few short decades, these hyper-efficient predators have decimated 99% of the area's small mammal populations. Once abundant native species like raccoons, opossums, marsh rabbits, and white-tailed deer have been systematically wiped out, vanished into the bellies of an invasive giant. But their destructive influence takes an even more bizarre and unexpected turn. These pythons have accidentally become the landscape architects of a ruined ecosystem. When they swallow small animals, they also ingest whatever seeds those animals had eaten. As the snakes travel miles across the marsh over several weeks, they eventually deposit those seeds through their digestive tracts. Because native plants are being spread in completely unnatural patterns and non-native vegetation is thriving, the fundamental plant structure of the Everglades is being altered forever. Trying to stop them has proven to be an absolute nightmare for local authorities, largely due to a highly effective reproductive strategy known as polyandry. During the spring breeding season, the marsh plays host to a chaotic spectacle. A single, massive female python will emit a strong chemical trail that attracts multiple suitors, resulting in a giant, writhing mating ball where 5, 6, or even 7 smaller males tightly coil around her at the very same time. When that female finally lays her massive clutch of up to 100 eggs, those eggs do not just belong to one father. A single nest can contain offspring from several different males, causing the genetic diversity of a single litter to skyrocket. This high level of genetic variety means that with every new generation, the snakes become smarter, tougher, and much better equipped to survive human traps and changing climates. Local bounty hunters and state biologists are working around the clock, but the stark reality is that the snakes are multiplying at a rate that completely outpaces our best efforts to remove them. Humans are playing a losing game of catch-up against a creature that reproduces like clockwork, leaves behind an incredibly diverse gene pool, and rewrites the rules of survival with every single nest. When Dr. Melissa Miller carefully made her first incision down the length of that deceased python, the sterile air of the lab offered no warning for what she was about to uncover. She was not looking at internal bleeding from a fight, nor did she find any signs of chemical poisoning. Instead, as she peeled back the tissue to inspect the respiratory tract, she found a scene straight out of a biological horror movie. Under the bright lab lights, the python's lungs were heavily inflamed, ulcerated, and packed to the brim with hundreds of tiny, translucent organisms. Under the microscope, these creatures resembled pale, writhing maggots, equipped with sharp hooks designed to anchor themselves deep into living flesh. This was Rhyolithiella orientalis, a parasitic lungworm native to the tropical ecosystems of Southeast Asia. It had traveled thousands of miles across the ocean, hitching a ride inside the pet trade pythons that eventually escaped into the wild. Back in their native Asian habitats, pythons and these lungworms share a relationship shaped by millions of years of coevolution. Because they evolved together, the Asian pythons developed a rugged immune response, an internal defense system that allows them to tolerate the parasites without much trouble. But when this biological hitchhiker landed in the pristine, vulnerable wetlands of Florida, a devastating ecological phenomenon known as spillback took root. The parasite did not stay confined to the pythons. It found a whole new buffet of vulnerable hosts that were completely defenseless. The way this parasite spreads through the American ecosystem is both brilliant and terrifying. It begins when an infected python sheds thousands of microscopic lungworm eggs into the mud through its waste. Local insects, like dung beetles and flies, feed on this waste and ingest the eggs. From there, native frogs, toads, and lizards eat the infected insects, acting as intermediate hosts. The real tragedy strikes when Florida's native snakes do what they have always done for survival. They hunt and consume those infected frogs and lizards. This brings us to the most heartbreaking phase of this environmental crisis. Because the true danger of this parasite isn't that it occasionally kills a python. The real catastrophe is the absolute devastation it is inflicting on America's native snake populations. Right now, at least 13 different species of native Florida snakes, including the common garter snake, the black racer, and vital native water snakes, are turning up heavily infected with this Asian parasite. Our local North American snakes are facing a death sentence because their bodies are structurally unequipped to handle such a massive parasite. Unlike a giant python, a native water snake has a relatively tiny body and delicate, fragile lungs. When these aggressive foreign lungworms take hold inside a native snake, they quickly grow, multiply, and feed on the blood supply, causing the lung tissue to fill with thick fluid and mucus. The poor native snakes suffer an agonizingly slow and miserable demise. They succumb to what biologists describe as dry drowning, literally suffocating to death from the inside out because their fluid-filled lungs can no longer draw in oxygen. You can find them gasping for air on the canal banks, emaciated and weak, utterly defeated by an invisible enemy they never evolved to fight. Even worse, The latest scientific data has confirmed an absolute nightmare scenario for wildlife conservationists. Reproductive orientalis has successfully completed a host switch. This means the parasite no longer needs the Burmese python to maintain its deadly life cycle in America. It has integrated itself so deeply into the local food web, using native insects, native frogs, and native snakes, that it now thrives entirely on its own. It has established a permanent, self-sustaining foothold in the American wilderness. Even if a miracle occurred tomorrow and every single invasive python vanished from the state of Florida, this invisible killer would remain behind in the soil, the water, and the local wildlife. It will continue its silent march through the swamps, relentlessly targeting and wiping out the native reptiles that form the backbone of the ecosystem. The invasion has evolved from a visible threat of giant constrictors into an invisible, microscopic plague, shifting the balance of power in the wetlands and leaving our native wildlife to fight a war on two fronts against an enemy they cannot even see. Just when the suffocating darkness of disease and an invasive army seems to permanently overshadow the Everglades, America's wild heart holds on to one final, magnificent ray of hope. Emerging slowly from beneath a thick blanket of decaying pine needles and fallen palmetto leaves, a massive, powerful head appears. As this creature glides out into the warm Florida sunlight, its glossy scales catch the light, reflecting a breathtaking, iridescent sheen of deep gunmetal blue and midnight purple. This is Drymarchon cooperi, the legendary Eastern Indigo snake. Growing up to more than 8 feet in length, it proudly holds the title of the longest native snake in North America. Older generations of Americans who grew up exploring these woods know this magnificent creature by its true title, the Emperor of the Forest Floor. They possess absolutely no venom, yet they carry an unmatched muscular strength and an incredible biological superpower. Complete immunity to the deadly venom of North America's most dangerous pit vipers. Before we look at how this royal predator could save the day, have you ever been lucky enough to spot an Eastern Indigo snake out in the wild? Or maybe you remember seeing one years ago. Drop your stories in the comments below because we would love to hear about your encounters with this American icon. When it comes to hunting, the Eastern Indigo is a true masterclass in raw power, completely throwing out the playbook used by heavy constrictors like the Burmese python. An indigo snake does not waste time trying to coil around and suffocate its prey. Instead, it relies on explosive speed and relentless forward momentum. It actively stalks its target, pinning it down with its heavy body, and uses an incredibly powerful, crushing jaw to clamp down directly on the prey's head, dispatching it almost instantly. Deadly timber rattlesnakes, eastern diamondbacks, and swamp-dwelling cottonmouths are not threats to this king. They are merely regular items on its preferred menu. The indigo swallows them whole, completely unfazed by the venomous defenses that would instantly kill almost any other living creature in the woods. Tragically, decades of severe habitat loss, fragmentation, and overcollection caused the Eastern Indigo to vanish from almost all of its historical territory, landing it straight onto the endangered species list. For a long time, it seemed like the emperor had been driven from its throne forever, but dedicated conservationists refused to let this American treasure slip away into the history books. Through tireless, decades-long breeding and relocation programs led by organizations like the Oriane Society, the tide is finally beginning to turn. Scientists have been carefully releasing healthy, radio-tagged indigos back into protected long-leaf pine ecosystems like the Apalachicola Bluffs. The hard work paid off in a historic breakthrough when researchers discovered wild-born indigo hatchlings out in the brush. This was definitive, emotional proof that these majestic snakes were not just surviving in the wild, they were successfully breeding and reclaiming their ancestral home. This brings us to a bold, groundbreaking strategy that has scientists incredibly excited about the future of the Everglades. Wildlife biologists are laying the groundwork for a daring plan to push these expanding Eastern indigo populations further south, directly into the python-infested heart of the wetlands. Now, realistically, a native indigo snake is not going to go head-to-head in a gladiator match against a monstrous 100-pound adult Burmese python, but it does not have to. The Eastern indigo is the absolute ultimate nightmare for juvenile pythons and newly hatched python nests. During those critical first few months of life, young pythons are highly vulnerable, and a hungry indigo moving through the undergrowth can hunt them down with ruthless efficiency. By systematically consuming the younger generation of pythons and devouring their eggs before they can grow into unstoppable giants, the Eastern indigo can cut off the invasive population right at the root. This is a natural biological check on an out-of-control invader. It is a restoration of balance that humans could never hope to achieve with traps, trucks, and firearms alone. The true king of the American wilderness is marching back to the front lines, ready to fight for its kingdom and restore a long-lost order to the ancient, troubled waters of the River of Grass. What we are looking at now is a high-stakes, breathless race against time, a collision course between two powerful forces moving across the Sunshine State. Picture a map of Florida split right down the center. On one side, you have a dark red arrow representing the silent, microscopic march of the Asian lungworm, spreading relentlessly outward from the epicenter of the Everglades and pushing further north every single day. On the other side of the map, a bright blue arrow marks the hard-fought comeback trail of the Eastern indigo snake, moving steadily southward from its release sites in the northern panhandle. These two paths are converging rapidly in central Florida. This sets up a critical question. When these two forces finally meet in full effect, will the Eastern indigo snake possess an immune system tough enough to withstand this deadly parasite? Or will our native king fall victim to this invisible plague before it even gets the chance to reclaim its rightful crown in the Everglades? Before we explore how nature might answer that question, we want to hear your thoughts. Do you believe human intervention can actually fix these massive ecological disruptions, or should we step back and let nature sort it out on its own terms? Let us know what you think in the comments below. This collision is forcing a massive shift in how the world's leading conservation biologists look at environmental protection. As we watch the golden sun sink below the horizon of the marsh, casting a deep crimson glow over a completely altered landscape, we have to square with a heavy, undeniable truth. The idea of completely restoring the Everglades to exactly the way it looked 30, 50, or 100 years ago is an absolute fantasy. That untouched, historic past is gone, and no amount of money, trapping, or human engineering is ever going to bring it back. We have to stop looking backward through a lens of pure nostalgia and start looking forward at reality. What we are witnessing in the American wetlands is not an ecosystem simply dying out. Instead, we are watching the painful, chaotic birth of what scientists call a novel ecosystem, a brand new ecological state of balance. Nature never stays frozen in time. It is an active, living force that constantly reshapes, adapts, and restructures itself in response to new pressures. The invasive pythons are here to stay. The Asian lungworms have already woven themselves permanently into the local food chain, and the native wildlife is being forced to adapt at a speed that completely defies traditional evolution. In this brave new world, our native species cannot rely on humans to solve every problem for them. They have to step up, evolve, and fight their own battles to secure their place in this shifting landscape. Our role as humans is no longer to act as all-powerful managers trying to control every single variable in the woods. Instead, our job is to act as a supportive partner, using smart science to give our native species a fighting chance, providing them with the space, the habitat, and the reintroduction support they need so they can go out and win these battles on their own merits. It is a tough, unsentimental philosophy, but it is the only realistic way forward. Nature is writing a brand new chapter right before our eyes, and the final outcome will be determined not by human desires, but by the raw resilience of the wild. The fight for the Everglades reminds us of a profound life lesson. True resilience isn't about remaining untouched by hardship, but about adapting and fighting back when your world completely changes. American wilderness is tougher than we think. No matter how finis the invader or how sneaky the invisible threat, the soul of this land waits for its true kings to reclaim it. Science doesn't grant miracles, it simply hands nature a shield to defend itself. Every single report on the I've Got One app and every donation to organizations like the Oriane Society helps tip the scales. What did this journey teach you about resilience today? Share your thoughts below. Subscribe to Stand with America's Wild Heart, and I will see you all in the next video.